everybody, and welcome back to Mod Driven. It's time for a bit of an update on a mod that I did a few weeks ago on the Honda Civic. And if you're not familiar, this is a 2020 Honda Civic, I believe it's the Sport, if I recall, 6-speed manual transmission. It is the coupe model, which is what I really wanted, and I actually had to bring it to South Texas from Florida because they're difficult to find, and Honda's not building a manual transmission coupe anymore, so go figure. But anyway, I put a cold air intake. It's really not a cold air intake, technically, because there's no closed box. It's really more of just an intake, an open box intake, I guess you'd say. So I put this in, I think it was about, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks ago. And I gotta say, I love the looks of it. And that was the primary reason for putting it in for me, because I've had experience with cold air intakes in the past, and from my own experience, I never really got a lot out of them, other than sound in the Jeep Gladiator with the Air Raid cold air intake. That's a closed box, and it gives you a lot more sound. But on this particular one, I haven't really noticed any sound difference. And it could be because there is a decent amount of road noise from the tires. Maybe that kind of factors in a little bit. It would drown out anything that I can hear. Now, it's not like I don't hear anything when I'm driving around. I mean, I can hear a little bit when I'm running through the gears, which, speaking of the gears, I have to mention, I probably sound like a broken record, but the best manual transmission out there to date is the Honda Civic, or the Honda manual transmission. I mean, it's so buttery smooth, easy to get through, responsive, tight enough, but not too tight. I mean, I just can't say enough about it. It is fantastic. It's the reason I went back to one of the big reasons why I went back to the Honda, and my urge for another manual transmission. But anyway, back to the cold air intake. Not a lot of sound out of it, except for maybe upon acceleration running through the gears. Otherwise, you'd never know it was there just driving down the road. Very normal, I guess. No more sound than you get out of just the standard cold air intake that comes on the car. Now, I mentioned aesthetics. I got a little bit lucky on this one in that it matched. The tubing on it is the same color as the car, which again was just lucky. You know, I recently did an install on one of my other channels, Rob Motive, where I actually painted the tubing. It's metal, roughed it up a bit, primed it, painted it to match the color of an accent that I put in the wheels. But as it turns out on that vehicle, on the Toyota Tacoma, it's electric lime metallic, by the way. It matches the truck very well too. So I got lucky with the painting part there, I suppose. But no painting on this one, although you could. I mean, if you weren't trying to match the color, you have a different color than the gray that I have. You can paint it red, purple, pink, you know, whatever turns you on, whatever you want to paint it. I've discovered a new thing for myself. I can now modify tubing for intakes. Anyway, it looks great under the hood. The tubing matches the car, and it has that nice big, in this case red, air filter. I like that better too. Even though it's not a box, I think it's a better filtration system than just the stock setup. You know, the stock setup is just the old flat type on top of the intake filter. This seems to be much better, and also I can see it easily. You know, I don't have to undo the lid, take half of the box apart to be able to see if the filter is dirty. This one is right in front of me. The downside, I suppose, is that they're pretty expensive to replace. You can go with the cleanable, you know, type, the kind that have oil on them, then you have to re-oil them and all that stuff. But for me, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to have an oiled filter where air is supposed to pass through the little holes or pores in the filter to filter things out. I would think it would clog easier. And that's a good reason for the manufacturers, because obviously if they get so dirty more often, you have to replace them more often. I don't know, maybe there's a bit of a racket there. Never been a big fan of the oil type. Now, let's talk about power. You know, a lot of the intake people talk about power. You're going to have such and such percentage of horsepower increase. I can't say that I've noticed any of that. I mean, this particular Honda is pretty quick anyway. I mean, you zip around in it, it goes. So I really haven't noticed any power increase of any kind. Probably because, again, it is so quick anyway. Lastly, let's talk about fuel economy, because that's another thing that a lot of cold intake and intake manufacturers recommend, is that you'll have some percentage increase in fuel economy. This thing gets awesome fuel economy anyway. I mean, looking at the gauge cluster right now, I'm getting 31 miles per gallon. Now, that may not be great compared to some of the hybrids and electrics and all those things that are out there, but for a naturally aspirated engine, which is what this is non-turbo, by the way, it's awesome. 31 miles per gallon. I mean, when I look at that and then jump in my Tacoma, for example, and see 14.5 to 15.5 miles per gallon, it's quite refreshing that I can go twice as far in this car on the same gas as I can in the Toyota Tacoma. The Jeep Gladiator, which I also have a channel for, by the way, it's Rob Motive JT, is just as bad. A little bit better than the Tacoma, but still, we're only talking about 16, 17 miles per gallon. So 31 is pretty refreshing. I do not attribute that number to the intake, however. I haven't noticed any increase in fuel economy since I put the intake in. I mean, it stayed pretty much where it was, which I guess on the flip side is a positive as well. It hasn't hurt the fuel economy any, which I'm surprised, because I'm always trying to hear it, so I'm a little heavier on the gas pedal. I would have expected it to drop, if anything, because of how I drive with it on the car, even though I don't really notice much, if anything at all. Anyway, I just wanted to get on, give you guys kind of an update. I know there's people out there that are considering going with an intake, whether it be for the Honda Civic, Toyota Tacoma, Jeep Wrangler, Porsche 911, whatever it is. I would say, except for the air raid in the Jeep Gladiator, don't expect much. You might hear a little bit of a sound difference, but that's all you're going to get, if you're lucky enough to get that at all. Leave a comment. Let me know if you've put an intake or a cold air intake in your vehicle, whatever it is. Did you notice any measurable difference? And be honest. I'd be curious to know. Also, real quick, I do have 2 additional channels, as I mentioned. Rob Motive, all about the Toyota Tacoma, and Rob Motive JT, all about the Jeep Gladiator. Check them out, and if you're interested, why not subscribe? And while you're at it, smash the subscribe button here too. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.